For one who's very identified with thoughts, mindfulness is a very powerful practice. Typically, the subject is identified with objects, thoughts being one of those objects. So this journey really starts with the subject being identified with the object. This journey progresses to the point where the subject is aware of objects and then progresses further to the point where the subject is aware of the subject. So if we want to break this journey down into a step-by-step process, we can really summarize it with these 3 milestones. So for a lot of people's spiritual journey, the initial awakening starts when you are aware of the voice that appears to be in your head, the narrative, that you're aware of your thoughts. See, for those who aren't even aware of the voice in their head, who aren't even aware of the thoughts, they are identified with those thoughts. Because they are identified with those thoughts, they believe themselves to be that voice. There's no distance. They can't even label it as a voice in the head because there's no distance for them to see the voice objectively. There's no distance between what they are and the voice. It's something that they can't see objectively and therefore label. You can only label something that you are at a distance from. You can only label something that you are beyond. You can only label something that appears to you. Therefore, something that is objective. So, the subject is so identified with the thoughts being objects, the subject being what you essentially are. And when this identification is very strong, when this is all you know, then the practice is simply becoming aware of objects. And becoming aware of objects or being aware of objects is really this practice that's typically given the name mindfulness. Although I don't really like that name as a practice because it implies that your mind is full. And the experience is actually quite the opposite. You experience more of this emptiness of mind, not a fullness of mind. It's very relaxing. It's very, very meditative in a way, to just simply be aware of objects. So there's this witnessing quality to it. And the witnessing is not something that you are doing. And this witnessing is actually effortless. It's just is effortlessly witnessing. Depending on, I guess, how you learn this mindfulness, it's not something that I really learned, is just happening. but I've heard some people explain it to me in our community, that they label everything. There's no need to label microphone, camera, window, TV. There's no need, because that requires effort. That labeling requires effort. It's then this activity of labeling. You're not trying to organize life. You're not trying to put labels on everything and sort it out and put in boxes, and that's not the practice. The mind will want to do that because the mind itself is a manager. It wants to micromanage everything, organize everything, put everything in its place, categorize, classifies, name, label. So you're not essentially labeling things. You're just simply aware of things. Drinking a coffee, you're aware of the coffee mug. You're aware of the temperature of the coffee, the warmth in the hands. You're aware of that sensation. You're aware of the smell. You're aware of the visual, the steam. You're aware of the sensation as you're drinking it. So all of these things you are aware. You're not thinking hot. You're not thinking steam. You're not thinking liquid. It's simply a noticing. And this noticing is effortless. This noticing is not a thought. You're not sitting there and taking inventory of everything. Mug, check. Steam, check. Warmth, check. Liquid, check. You're not doing that. That gets the thought process going. Like I said, it's not that you're full of thinking. That's why I don't really prefer that word, mindfulness. Typically, people are full of thinking. But it's more of just this noticing, this emptiness of mind, where you're just simply aware of this, what's happening. Aware of the trees swaying in the wind, aware of the sound of the wind, aware of the warmth of the sun on the face, aware of the ground beneath the feet, aware of the hinging of the knees, the propelling of the hips, the turning of the spine, the swinging of the shoulders. All of this you're aware of. And what you'll find is by being mindful, by being aware of all of that happening, of all those objects, you'll find that you're not identified. You're not lost in thought. You're not that thought process anymore. Instead of being that activity of thinking, you are resting as the space in which all of those objects are appearing in. So resting as this space in which these objects, the sun, the clouds, the pavement underneath your feet, the mailbox that you're walking towards, the swinging of the shoulders, the rolling of the ankles, the hinging of the knees, all of this is seen objectively, that you are aware of that objective experience. And it's just this effortless, it's like a passive noticing. Nothing is really like latched on. You're not involved in anything specifically. You're not more focused on the steam of the coffee more so than the warmth of the coffee. You're not more so focused on the liquid, the coffee itself, and you're excluding the mug in which it's in. Everything is just seen as it's appearing, as it's arising, and nothing's excluded. And without excluding anything, this experience is all-inclusive. That it might start off with, let me just actually grab a mug here. That it might start off with actually drinking tea, the tea. And there may be now just the awareness of this hot mug and the smell, the steam, the sensation of the wet liquid in the mouth, that warmth going down the throat, warming the belly. But at the same time, maybe you're listening to the birds. There's an awareness of birds singing. There's an awareness of kids going to school, bus going down the street. There's the awareness of a neighbor cutting the grass. Perhaps you're at a coffee shop. There's the awareness of customers lining up, ordering, baristas taking orders, making beverages, chatter going on around you. So it's not like there's an exclusive attention going to one thing. That would be more concentration. But it's simply this all-inclusive awareness of objects, an all-inclusive objective experience. That this experience is entirely objective. And it's you, the subject, that is aware of the objects. So this is, in a way, a step back. Remember at the start I said that the subject is really identified as the object. Attention is lost in objects. So as soon as we become aware of the thoughts, this narrative, this thinking narrative, it's like a stream of thoughts. As soon as you become aware of it, you're not actually in the stream anymore. You are actually, you could say, on the bank, on the shore. You're able to see the stream of thoughts. So this creates this distance that I was saying. You're able to see it, the stream of thinking. So like that, you're now not just including thoughts. Thoughts are just one object, but there's also the 5 other senses which you are including. Well, can you see smelling and tasting and touching and hearing? And can you see, are you aware of those other senses objectively? And the difference of being so identified with that activity and feeling that you are that activity is a radical difference. Because now you have this distance from that thought stream. You also experience that distance as a sense of freedom, that you're not identified with that activity. Now you are able to observe that activity. You're able to observe that activity. But it's not just the thought activity. It's the activity of sensing and perceiving as well. So let's just call it the 5 other senses. So now when this is included, It's all inclusive. That you, the awareness, are aware of the objective experience of the 6 senses. You actually start experiencing this rest. It's radically different. Because there's an activity that's appearing in a restful space. There's this enjoyment to just simply rest and be aware of trees blowing in the wind, warm cup of tea in the hand, butt in a comfortable chair, feet crossed, a fan humming. It's just all of this that you're simply effortlessly aware of. And this is really the practice of mindfulness. So there is a purpose to that, I guess you can say, if you want to talk about it like that. And like I said, it's this, in the journey, it's really a halfway point in terms of coming all the way back to what we essentially are. If we're identified with thinking, then we take a step back. We're able to observe, a witness. We are aware of this activity. Now we're saying it's not just the activity of thinking, it's the activity of everything else. That really all of this, that what you know, the seeing, the hearing, the touching, the smelling, all of that is also the same activity. There's really just one activity. So we start off identified with our own activity. The activity of awareness. Awareness is identified with its own activity. Then we become aware of that activity, which is mindfulness. And then one step further beyond that is then we become aware of awareness. We are identified with our own activity. We become aware of our activity. And then we become aware of ourselves. So the mindfulness is very powerful. It's very useful for one that's really identified with the activity. So every time you are aware of the activity, you are not identified with the activity. That's the power in it. You can't be aware of the activity and identified with the activity at the same time. Identified means to be the same as. It's literally you are that activity in that moment. So if you're identified with the activity, you are that activity. In a way, you've become that activity. If you are aware of the activity, then you aren't identified with it. You're not the same as it. Why? Well, because you can see it objectively. There's a distance between you and the activity. There's the activity which appears more so in the foreground, and you are this background awareness. I often describe the mindfulness as that, as this background awareness. Everything feels like it's just happening. The activity is happening in the foreground, but you are observing it, witnessing it, aware of it as the background awareness. And it's not just your thoughts. It's not just your emotions. It might start off that way. I know a lot of people, they kind of teach it like that. So I hear in this kind of formal meditation practice, sitting down, just watching those thoughts, those feelings. But there's more to it than that, because it's not just thoughts and feelings. It's like right now, there's a witnessing of sitting in the chair and moving the hands and speaking. There's a witnessing of I can see the trees in the background, looking out the window and seeing birds fly by and trees blowing in the wind. I can hear there's a fan noise coming from my fridge. There's all of this happening. The sensations of the legs and how my feet are crossed. My eyes, they're sensitive to the light. There's flickering in my eyes, blinking a lot as I look out the window. All of this is an objective experience. And there's an awareness of it. So this is then this mindful practice. And this is then 24/7. That this practice isn't just a formal practice where you sit down. It might start off as that, and that's great. But then it's like you take that practice off the meditation cushion and now keep that practice going when you're driving to work. That are you mindful of the shoulders being tight, clenching the steering wheel? Are you mindful of the tension in the hands, clenching onto the wheel? Are you mindful of what you are observing as you're driving? Are you aware of the rumble in the car, the vibration going through your butt in the seat? Are you aware of everything else? And you'll notice that you can't be thinking all too much when this is happening. That when you are fully mindful, it's like there's no thoughts. Even if there are thoughts, you are aware of those thoughts. Those thoughts are just appearing as objects. But so are the trees appearing as objects. So is the smell appearing as objects. So is the hearing appearing as objects, the sounds. So that is kind of where you take that practice, which may feel like it's just a formal meditation practice on a cushion or sitting down on the couch or in a chair for what appears to be like 10 minutes, my mindfulness practice of 10 minutes, my meditation practice of 10 minutes. But then it's about, can the whole day be meditative? Can that meditation carry on throughout the day? And that's what I hear from members in our community, is it's very much this is when I'm meditating, like in the morning, and this is when I'm meditating at night. And it's really to kind of see that this meditation is ever present. It's ongoing. There's no start, there's no end to it. Then in truth, this meditation is actually what you are. So when it's treated like that, then you're not creating endings for that which has no ending. That just because you open up your eyes, it doesn't mean the meditation is over. Could be that was considered eyes closed meditation, but now there's eyes open meditation. And what you'll see is that by remaining as that background awareness, you will start seeing literally everything. You'll start seeing all these thoughts. You'll start seeing these feelings arise. You'll start seeing the sights and the sounds and all of the other senses. And the experience will be very fulfilling. It's full of everything. Before it was just full of thought. Now it's just full of everything. It's all-inclusive. It's an all-inclusive experiencing. And that's really what you are. You are pure experiencing. And experiencing is all-inclusive. See that this video, this not so much a conversation, it's more of a one-way conversation, I guess. it's included this experience. That whatever you're feeling right now, see that the experiencing has already included it. It has already been accepted because it's here. See, if it wasn't accepted, it wouldn't be here. So whatever thought is arising, it's already accepted because it's here, it's present. Whatever feeling is arising, it has already been allowed because it's present. So this experiencing, it excludes nothing. This experiencing is all inclusive. And by simply experiencing everything as it is, then you are letting things be as they are. This mindfulness is not about changing things. You are simply aware of drinking tea. You're not trying to change the tea into hot chocolate. You're not complaining about the tea and saying, I wish it wasn't tea, I want something else. There's just simply an awareness of what is. And this is why you can experience what feels like an appreciation. Because this mindfulness shifts you from resisting to allowing. The thought process being exclusively identified with thoughts is typically this resistance. And as you shift out of just thinking to the awareness that you are, well, the awareness that you are is complete allowance, total allowance. So by remaining as what you are, this total allowance, and allowing everything to be, you now start experiencing this appreciation. Because how can you appreciate what you do not allow? How can you appreciate what you do not accept? What you are is allowance. What you are is acceptance. By allowing everything to be, by accepting everything as it is, well, now there's this feeling of appreciation starts welling up. And it's not an appreciation for something specific. It's not like, oh, that thing I have so much appreciation for. It's more of this total appreciation, like a global appreciation. It's really the appreciation of what is, the appreciation of this moment. This objective experience is what you are appreciating. Now, you are appreciating it because you are allowing it to be. You are accepting it as it is. You can't appreciate something that you're saying, no, thank you. You can't appreciate something that you're saying, I don't want that. So when you are resisting, when you are rejecting, you won't be experiencing the appreciation. Now, with this appreciation, you also start experiencing what people would describe as gratitude. There's this feeling of gratitude. But like I said, just like the appreciation, there's not something specific that you are grateful for. It's not something that you're forcing, like you need to sit down with a gratitude journal. And I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying this is like effortless gratitude. It's just being grateful for what is. It's nothing that you're actually recollecting, remembering. Like, let me sit down with my gratitude journal and let me remember everything that happened today that I'm grateful for. It's not that. Because true gratitude, true gratefulness is actually this present moment. This present moment is all there is. That you actually are experiencing gratitude only in the now. And this gratitude could also be stated as this gratefulness. And this gratefulness could be heard like this: a great fullness. It's a great fullness because you are all inclusive. You are allowing everything to be as it is. You are accepting everything as it is. So this gratitude, it's not for something in particular. There's this gratitude that's just welling up. You're grateful for the bird that you're hearing. You're also grateful for the warmth of the sun on your face. You're also grateful for the wind blowing against your hair. You're also grateful for the body that's walking on the path. You're grateful for the sunset. You're grateful for all of that, but it's nothing that in the moment you are actually selecting. I'm more grateful for that bird over the sun warmth on my skin. I'm more grateful for the sunset more so than the body that's walking on the path. See, that's actually what's been let go of, that exclusion, that you're not actually excluding things, you're not separating things from this experience. It's just one experience. Everything is included. This experiencing that you are is all inclusive. So everything is allowed to be exactly as it is. Everything is accepted exactly as it is. So this gratitude is really this gratefulness. And this gratefulness, hear it like this, it's a great fullness, that you are actually experiencing the fullness of this moment. What you are is this moment. You're experiencing the fullness of what you are. That's why it doesn't feel like one thing contributes to this feeling of gratitude. Nothing in specific. There's no object that seems to be giving you this gratitude. The experience is just like your heart is full. And because you have allowed everything to be, because you have accepted everything to be, the experience is that there's just love for what is. You aren't resisting it. You aren't rejecting it. You aren't trying to separate this experience. There's just this. And you aren't separate from it. Because in that moment, when you are simply experiencing all-inclusive, everything is experienced as it is. You aren't trying to separate and divide. You're not trying to push away this. You're not trying to ask for a little bit more of that. There's actually no separation. That activity of separating has actually ceased. And there's just this. And there's nothing separate about this. That's what feels full. It's full because it's complete. It's complete because it's whole. It's what you are. So this mindfulness, it really is a powerful practice. And like I'm kind of laying out, it can take you out of this exclusive thinking, meaning that you're only thinking, into including everything else. So we aren't making thoughts the enemy. We're not trying to swap. You know what? I don't want to think anymore, but I just want the other 5 senses. It's not swapping. It's just simply about including. You just continue to include and include and include and include until you've included everything. And then just realizing that's actually the way it is. That your direct experience of this moment, nothing is excluded. Everything is included. Where do you draw the line from what is to what is not? You don't. It's just this. When you aren't drawing lines, creating imaginary boundaries that don't exist, when you aren't trying to slice and dice this experience and chop it up into fragments, it's experienced totally. And that is a totally different way of living. The totality of the moment, the totality of living totally. So if you feel like you're very identified with those thoughts, then it's just that step of being aware of those thoughts. And then include the 5 other senses. And then you'll start feeling like that experience feels more balanced now. Yeah. There's more here to just thinking. There's also the smelling, the seeing, the tasting, the touching, the hearing. Oh, yeah, that stuff. And then you'll start seeing that the thinking doesn't take the spotlight. The attention is really like a spotlight. And the attention is not excluding everything else by putting in the shadow and putting the thinking under the spotlight. Instead, the attention is relaxed and it's now this wide. It's a widened attention. The attention is wide. It's open. It's including the 5 other senses. And without trying to give something more importance than something else, without trying to differentiate, without trying to exclude, it's simply left wide open so that you are experiencing these objects that you are aware of. Not you as the body, but you as awareness are aware of. And you simply continue watching. Continue being aware. And the practice really is whenever you find that you have become identified, you are then aware of that. I was identified. And you just simply come back to being aware of the objects. As soon as you realize that you have been identified with an object, right there, you aren't identified with it because you are able to see that. You're able to see that. And then that's that practice. Like I said, that's what just spans out for the entire day. That's where you're not just treating it like a mindfulness practice in the morning or a meditation practice at night. It's this meditation that's just your life. Your life. But it's not seen to be any sort of, as much as we're calling it a practice, just see that you're not really doing anything. It's actually letting go of what you're doing, which is the identification, which is the separation, the exclusion, the giving this more importance than that, trying to swap this with something else, trying to reject this, trying to push that away, trying to, make a deal. I'll bear with this, but hopefully things get better for me tomorrow. It's none of that. You're just allowing everything to be, accepting it. It's already here. And there's no separation. So there's just a love for what is. So it's not a doing. It's your being. And as long as you're being, then you allow everything to be. It's just how it is. You can't simply be and then still trying to avoid and push away things, because that's the doing. So it's this mindfulness really is this kind of, like I said, this halfway that you come out of doing and shift into the being. And even that's not said accurately. You're not shifting into being. You are already being. But the language is limited. You're always being. It's just the doing. That's the activity. Remember, that's the activity that you're identified with. So when you let go of that identification with that activity, then you experience the being that you are. And even the being doesn't exclude the doing. The doing, that's allowed. But the experience of it is totally different. You really shift from effort to effortless. And it's this mindfulness. Like I said, it's this, you could say it's a practice. You're not really doing anything. And you'll find that you're just experiencing less and less effort. The more mindful that you are, the more aware you are, instead of being identified with the objects, but instead by remaining as the awareness of the objects, you will find that you are more and more effortless. And it's that effortless, it's that naturalness that people basically associate with meditation. They'll say things like, yeah, I felt very meditative this morning. That mindfulness practice helps me be more meditative. What they're saying is really that mindfulness practice helps me remain effortless, helps me remain natural. Now, what could be more effortless? What could be more natural than being yourself? So we could see it as like a bridge. It's a bridge on this journey back to ourself. You cross this bridge. You cross this bridge and you are simply back to being yourself. But it doesn't matter, because any way that I say it, it's not accurate. It's not true the way that I say it, because that implies that you're not already yourself. You are yourself right now, but it's more so that you are yourself unknowingly, which then, might as well mention in this video, takes us to that third step. Like I said, first, this journey is kind of like what we are, awareness, what you are, awareness, is identified with the activity. Then awareness, what you are, then becomes aware of that activity. Third step, awareness, what you are, is then aware of itself. And it's hard to say this accurate, because even that's not even true, because you're always aware of yourself. You're always aware of yourself. It's just being aware of yourself in the midst of all that activity. And right now, you are aware. How do you know that you're aware? Because you are aware that you are aware. Awareness is self-aware. It always knows itself. It's just that it's getting lost. The habit is to get lost in its activity, the activity of creation. We love it so much. We get lost in it. But this mindfulness is really like this bridge to come back on this metaphorical journey back to ourself. We come from effort to effortless. Come from doing to then being. And life doesn't change, but it does change. Everything changes. It's very paradoxical. It's like nothing changes, but everything changes. From someone looking on the outside in, it would look like nothing really changes, but you know very damn well that everything has changed. And it's more so how you are experiencing life. It's a shift in perception or a shift in perspective. It's how you are experiencing. And this is really experiencing this effortlessness, this simplicity, this naturalness, happiness, love, peace, freedom, beauty, intelligence, wonder, awe. You're experiencing that and so much more. So if you're new to mindfulness, or maybe perhaps that's something that maybe you have heard of, but you haven't really quite explored it fully, how I'm speaking about it, then it's an invitation. Try it out, see what happens. And if you have been maybe in this mindset of treating your meditation or your mindfulness practice as this kind of like 10 minutes morning and night, or 30 minutes here every day, see it as something that has no limit, because it truly doesn't. Because it's what you are, and what you are has no limits. You start experiencing life more effortlessly, living more effortlessly, this effortless living, as I call it. Natural living, as I call it. Another word for it, you're just being yourself. Life. So that's what you are. Hopefully this helps. See you in the next one.